All right, so let's log in. Again, you'll see the same promotions going on. All right, so here, I've scrolled down just a little bit so you can see clearly. This is your main booking form. This is, you'll see your information here. So this is my information, my photo. I'm the admin and the travel agency. And you can always manage your profile by just clicking here or logging off. And you have a couple options. You can start an individual reservation, you can start a group, or you can start you can also find a reservation if you are looking to do something within a certain reservation that you've already made. All right, so here you'll see the different brands that are available to be booked on Expresso. You will notice that Silver Sea is not available to book on Expresso. I'm not sure if that's ever going to change or if they will eventually incorporate that into Expresso. But for now, the only brands that can be on Expresso are Azamara, Celebrity, and Royal Caribbean. So let's do a Royal Caribbean cruise. So you can select none of the brands, or you can select one if your client has requested a particular one. So let's say that your client has requested specifically a Royal Caribbean cruise, and they don't really have a cruise that they want to go on. They just want to go for a certain date. They want to go to the Caribbean so that we can, well, actually, no, let's do Europe. So they want to go to Europe. So we can narrow our destination down to Europe, and they want to go in July. So you'll see when you narrow it down to Royal Caribbean and Europe, and if you narrowed it down to a ship, then when you go to the calendar, it will only have the sailings that match the brand, the ship, and the destination. So you know that each of these that are not highlighted, they are all Royal Caribbean cruises, and all of them are going to Europe. Where in Europe? We'll see. So let's say we're going in July, and let's say they want to go on 4th of July. So they want to go on 4th of July, but they're flexible that they can leave either the 4th of July, before the 4th of July, or a little bit after, but they want to spend that weekend, that 4th of July weekend, on a cruise. So let's actually start on June 30th, because there are some cruises that most cruises are going to be going in Europe 7 days or more. And you say we have 2 adults, and let's say we put some children in there, so 2 adults and 2 kids. And we're going to put them all in the same room because on cruise lines, you have to be over a certain age to be in a room by yourself. It's usually 21. If you want, you can also get some promotional rates by giving the residency if they're over age 55, if they're law enforcement, fire department, or EMT, or U.S. military. Sometimes there are promotions going on that apply to those categories. And on those tips, if you are in Florida, usually there is some sort of Florida resident discount. You just got to make sure that when they're sailing that they provide some kind of identification that shows a Florida address. All right, so let's search. All right, so we see here that there are 81 sailings that are Royal Caribbean and are going to Europe. Right, so this is where you'll get a little bit more comfortable once you're in the systems and working with them, because you're going to be talking about Western Mediterranean versus Europe East versus Eastern Mediterranean, Europe North, and all over. So it's hard to, when you're first starting out, to know what those mean, but you can always just hit here, just hit the date, and you'll see that this is a ship starting in Rome, going to Spain and Italy, and then going back to Rome. And this is actually not a sailing that's actually available, so we will move on from there. Let's say that they want to make sure that they go to Greece at some point in time in the sailing. They really want to go to Greece, so we want to make sure that there's some Greece itineraries. And look at that, we found one. So this is a sailing that starts in Barcelona, and it stops in France, Italy, and it makes 3 stops in Greece, goes to Malta, and then back to Spain. So we really like this one. So let's select this sailing. So here, you will only find availability for cabins that can hold all of the occupants of the room that you're looking for. So right now we have 2 adults and 2 kids. So you're only going to find, you're only going to see on here cabins that can hold 4. So they want something that, that has the balcony. So we're going to look for the balcony categories. So we have a spacious ocean view balcony. We see right here there's waitlisted, so you can't really select those, but we do see here that there is a spacious ocean view balcony in the 3B category that is available. So we're going to select that. Now, before you go on, if you just want to give a quote, you don't have to move ahead to staterooms. You can just hit price quote, and the price quote will give you the deposit, the due date for the deposit, and the final payment date. In this case, because we're selecting a cruise that is in July, usually it's final payment. However, if you are selecting a sailing that is later on in the year or maybe even next year, usually you can hold a cabin for a number of days before having to put down a deposit, and then your final payment date is usually about 60 days prior to sailing. So here we have that the total price of the rooms is $11,727.02. On the Vision of the Seas for a 12-night Eastern Mediterranean tour cruise starting on July 5th, 2019 in the cabin 3B category. We haven't selected a stateroom yet, but we'll move on to that in a moment. So here we see that the cruise costs for guests 1, 2, 3, 4, and the total. Then we have the non-commissionable cruise fare. So you should not count this when you're calculating your commission. You don't have to calculate your commission, but if you like to do that manually, don't count that in there because it doesn't count. And then also there is the promotional percentage that is off. So you can see here that guest number 2 gets $2,718 off their commission. So that's half of their commissional fare. And then also guests 3 and 4 have $572, which is looks like about a third of their cabin costs. And then there's also another $75 savings credit that's towards guest 1. So you'll see the total price, the taxes, fees, and port expenses are also non-commissionable. And you'll see the total price. If you want to jot down your commission, especially if you're doing some price comparisons, you'll see here that you have a total commission of $1,191.84. So this is the this is the commission that will be paid to the agency. And obviously, if you want to calculate what your percentage is, you just make sure that you multiply that by point whatever your commission split is. So if it's 75-25, it'll be 1,191.84 times 0.175 or 0.80 or 0.90. All right, say everything is great. Your client loves the price. You like the commission. Everything is good. Now you want to move on and you want to select your stateroom. All right, so we know here now that the spacious ocean view balcony is available on deck 7 for the ship. And you will actually see it highlighted what is available. So we see here that it's just the back of the ship. So there is a room 7512 is available. 7124 is also available. And 7150 is also available. The cool thing about this is that you have a legend here. So you see that the cabins that we're looking at, they are staterooms with sofa beds. And we also know that state cabin 7150 has an obstructive view. So this is probably not the one that you want to select for your client, especially unless they specifically ask for an obstructive view. I would never book an obstructive view cabin unless I get an okay from the client, in writing preferably. You don't want them to come back and complain. So let's do a middle. I like to do one as close to the middle as possible. So let's do 7174. 7124. So we'll select it, and then we can proceed to the guest details. All right, so you'll add your guest information. So guest 1, 2, 3, and 4. You have the option. There's a number of options that you can take on this page. You can add in additional promotions if you want to look at that. You can add in passport information if you have it. And if you're possibly looking to book your air through the cruise line, you can also add in that information. Personally, I don't like booking air through cruise lines because they are much more limited in terms of what it is that they have. So I usually use an air consolidator like Centrav or Cosmopolitan in order to book my air. Another thing about cruises, unless they're coming from a town that they live close to, so if somebody who lives in Orlando and they're sailing out of Port Canaveral, or if they live in Miami or Fort Lauderdale and they're sailing out of Miami or Fort Lauderdale, or they're in New York, or even if New York for either New York City or by Bayonne, I always recommend highly, stress highly, that they come in 1 to 2 days prior to their sailing. Why, you ask? You don't want to be at the mercy of flights. Obviously, most of these cruises are leaving at 4 p.m. or later for the sailing. If you're coming in the day of, what happens if you are coming in and you know that obviously you need to be on the cruise 2 hours before it actually sails. So let's say you have to be on the cruise. You have to be on the cruise by 1:30, 2 o'clock. If you're flying from, say, Florida, New York to Florida for your cruise, and your flight gets delayed, and you're flying in that same day, you're missing your cruise. Period. You're not going to make it. This is especially true if you're flying international. I don't know how many times I've had flights get canceled. They won't be able to leave until the next day. You don't want to be at the mercy of an airline in order to get to your cruise. Worse, if at least if you have a buffer of a day or two, if there is a cancellation, you can always reschedule, try to get a flight out that day, then later on that day, or very, very early in the morning the next day. You don't want to have to scramble the day of your cruise in order to, to see if you can possibly make it. Because now the cruise lines have gotten a lot more stricter in terms of meeting up with your cruise, and that sometimes they won't let you. So it's not like, oh, I missed the cruise from Port Canaveral. I'm just going to meet it in the Bahamas. It's not going to happen. So here, you're going to add in your guest information, first and last name, date of birth, male, female, citizenship, optional for onboard language, email address. I always put in my email address, so it would be suppliers@millionmilestravel.com to make sure that I received any notifications. Then they have the dining options. You have the seating that's available, which is at 6. And then you have table sizes, so you can have small or large. You can also request bedding configuration, so apart, one set together. And then you can also add in travel insurance. So one thing about Royal Caribbean, if your client is a resident of New York State, you will not be able to purchase travel insurance through Royal Caribbean for the client. You have to purchase it through a third party. Personally, I prefer to purchase travel insurance for anything I book. It doesn't matter if it's an all-inclusive package from Vacation Express or FunJet, or if it's a cruise from Royal Caribbean, Viking, or even AM Waterways or wherever. You always want to book your client third-party insurance. For the most part, I say 90% of the time, the coverage is going to be better. You're going to get cash benefits, not cruise credit, and it is you get medical coverage, which is very critical because a lot of times, if you get sick, which is usually what happens, someone gets critically ill and they can't continue with their trip. They get stuck in whatever country that they are stopped at. They need to now be transported back to the U.S. either for treatment or, God forbid, if there's a death, they need to be transported back to the U.S. A lot of company or internal tour operator insurance have very limited coverage for that, and you need a lot of coverage in order to do that. And the way to talk to your clients about travel insurance is more of an investment in their vacation. Can they afford to not have travel insurance? If something happens to them when they're overseas, are they able to get themselves, and if they're traveling with someone, are they able to get themselves and their traveling partner back to the U.S. in whichever means necessary? Medical evacuation from another country is very expensive. I think, the last time I heard, it's usually about $250,000 to medically evacuate someone from another country to the U.S. Obviously, that will vary depending on which country you are, what type of medical evacuation you need. Do you need a nurse with you while you're being medically evacuated? So there's a lot of different things to think about when you are selling or recommending travel insurance. All right, so once you fill out all of this guest information, you will review it and book. And once you review it and book, you will receive your booking number, and you will also receive via email a confirmation, which will have all of the booking information. It will also have the total booking cost, the commission level. You want to make sure that that does not go to the client. There are client copies, or there's agent copies and there's client copies. You want to make sure that the right copy goes with the right person and that the agent copy stays with you. All right, so if you have any questions about booking cruises, again, there's so many different cruise lines that are available out there. The booking systems vary a bit. This is just one example. I use it because it's 3 different cruise lines in one. So it is a great example to use, especially as an introduction to cruise bookings. Have a wonderful day and go book some Royal Caribbean Celebrate in Asmara.